If you ain't bothered by a planet full of Catherine Tates, please follow the instructions of your tour guide as we board for Death's Deal, written by Darren Jones and narrated by Catherine Tate and Duncan Wisby. Welcome everyone to an Unearthly podcast. This is our 37th episode on December 15 of 2013. I am the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell.
Hello.
And Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
They will be discussing, as we mentioned in the intro, Death's Deal, our continuation of the Destiny of the Doctor series. First off, there has been a little bit of news, as well as some other sci-fi news in general. First off, they have a new trailer for Time of the Doctor. Any thoughts on that, guys?
It's really nothing we haven't seen before.
Pretty much my thought exactly.
It's some Cybermen, a Weeping Angel, a Dalek, some silence, and a continuing reference that the Doctor's regenerating. Really, It doesn't tell us anything more than that.
A voiceover by Clara to remind us that she is now in full Mary Sue powered
Character involved in this, yes.
In other words, she's a Moffat female.
A Moffat lead female.
Yep.
Although a little less sassy.
Doesn't help any.
Yeah, it's still annoying. I mean, it's good if a character develops that way, but when they pretty much start that way, or it's just pretty much given the Mary Sue powers activate ball of tossed at,
exactly,
it's kind of not that good. I mean, Sarah Jane kind of built herself up to be that way eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it was kind of a actual character evolution and gradual, which kind of does negate the Mary Sue process. River Song started it pretty much out of the gate, which was, and my hatred for her is on record. And now we've got Clara, who's basically been handed the Mary Sue ball of ultimate power, of ultimate destiny. Grr.
And even though she doesn't have that whole sassy Moffat girl thing, some of her alternate incarnations did. So,
yeah,
and those are how we were introduced to her in the beginning.
I don't hate her as much as I hate River, but she occasionally annoys me.
Yes. Hopefully they start doing something better with her, otherwise I really have no interest in continuing to watch. Because if she's going to be the only companion, and I really don't like her, then why am I watching this for the companions? Because they are supposed to be the reliable characters, last time I checked at least. Other than the occasional sympathetic doctor.
Be kind of the viewer avatar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Moffat's kind of forgotten that.
Yes, because he keeps forgetting that and keeps making them his own avatar.
But regardless, we're just here to mention the fact that the trailer's up. Also, the BBC website has gotten some stuff up, some interviews, jigsaw puzzle, and a Christmas... some Christmas cards, all of which dealing with the new episode. That's on www.bbc.co.uk/Doctor Who. Enjoy. Pretty much that's pretty much all we have to do to cover on that article, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yep.
Yep. And the other non-sci-fi news, or non-Doctor Who news, is of course the big movie that hit the screens this weekend is Peter Jackson's second installment of the Hobbit trilogy. I went to go see it Thursday night at midnight, and, well, I pretty much hated it. If you're not a fan of the Hobbit books, you're probably going to enjoy the movie. If you are a fan, you are probably going to be more or less pissed, because Peter Jackson has taken such liberties with the story that it's not even really the Hobbit anymore.
Now, ignoring the changes to the story, when I watched the first movie with some people who had never read The Hobbit, they had some issues, especially, and that I also agreed with, which were things such as the pacing, the meandering story, and such, with the other things added in. Would you say that for people who have those issues that have not read the book, this one would be better, or?
Yes, the pacing is relatively rapid in this one. They pretty much go one to the other. My problem is that no time is spent where it should be spent. Basically, for those of you that know the book, pretty much everything up to the elves capturing the dwarves is pretty much a footnote. It's like the first 20 minutes of the movie, if that. And then you get to the elves, and Peter Jackson has brought in Legolas from The Lord of the Rings, because the fangirls like Legolas, and he proceeds to show up and start chewing the scenery. Orlando Bloom has become a member of the Big Ham list. But he basically proves his big hamminess by basically showing to everybody how much of a badass he is. It's almost like saying to the dwarves, no matter how good of a fighters you will be, I will always be more badass than you. And this is how I'll prove it. Of course, then Peter Jackson has brought in a female elf character as a love interest for Legolas. Yes, that is actually why she's there. And there is a love triangle between Legolas, her, and one of the dwarves and her. And not only are these two not restricted to being with the elves in Mirkwood, they proceed to follow the dwarves to Lake Town in pursuit of more screen time. Once you get to Lake Town, the movie becomes more or less on the rails, except for a 5-minute Orcs attacks Lake Town scene where Legolas and her show up and beat the hell out of the Orcs, to the fact that Legolas comes out of it with a bloody nose, while all the Orcs are either dead or have the crap beaten out of them by Legolas. Yeah. But then you get up to the smog stuff, and that part of the movie's good. So you've got like 15 to 20 minutes of good movie at the end, a 5-minute groan fest, 10 to 15 minutes of good movie in Lake Town, but then you've got to groan on your way to get there. Mirkwood, which is a good chunk of the book in this section, is barely touched on, and it really has lost some of its mystery. Peter Jackson.
How was Benedict Cumberbatch?
He was good.
Oh yeah, from what I've seen, yeah, he's really good.
He was good as the voice of Smaug. I would not have chosen him personally, but it's not my movie, and he did a good job with what with the role, and it felt good. I would have chose somebody with a little more of a deeper, if Christopher Lee wasn't Saruman, he would have been Smaug in my mind.
Not like they didn't edit the hell out of his voice in post anyways and do it.
Alan Rickman
might have been a good choice. Yeah, I would have preferred somebody slightly deeper, but he still pulls it off very well. It still works. His final lines in the movie are great, and I'm not going to spoilerize those.
Jesus wept.
But no, other than that, I can't recommend going to see this movie if you are a Hobbit fan. If you have never read the book...
If you're a Legolas fan, go out and buy your ticket now, apparently.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Go out there and squee at Legolas just beating the crap out of out of it. My problem with this is, of course, if Legolas had been this badass in Lord of the Rings, there wouldn't have been a War of the Rings. They would have just pointed Legolas at the invading orc armies and set him loose.
And I would retract the idea with, well, Ultima did it.
I mean, seriously, yes. In Lord of the Rings, he took down an elephant. In this one, in this particular version, he would have taken down the elephant without breaking a sweat and proceeded to beat the shit out of the rest of the York army just for shits and giggles. It's that bad. And he does it with this whole. I mean, he has the whole cheesy, almost Bruce Campbell-ish look on his face of this intense "I'm going to kill you" look.
Groovy.
It's kind of out of it. It's kind of off the rails.
Listen up, you primitive screwheads. This is my bow.
Pretty much. So, yeah. That's about all I have to say about that. Is there any other news?
Not particularly.
I don't think so, which means that we can, I guess, go on to talk about what little we actually would have to say, need to say about the 10th Doctor.
He's the 10th Doctor. He's David F.A. Tennant, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Pretty recent in most people's memories, but if you signed on to Doctor Who in 2010 and still somehow managed to avoid people talking about who is, as of now, still largely considered to be the most popular Doctor as of now. There's still some
as
debate
of the last
between him
Radio
and Baker.
Times poll, he is.
And as of, I forget who did that other poll. I linked in our group chat. I'm not sure if anyone looked at it.
I thought that was the Radio Times poll.
If it was somebody else's image about it. It was
Yeah, but I thought it mentioned the fact that it was a Radio Times poll. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but those of you not in England, the Radio Times is kind of like the BBC's or the Britain's version of the TV Guide. So it is, pretty much a listing of what's on, what's time, with feature articles about the big particular highlight shows out at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And little things like polls and surveys and stuff.
Okay, apparently I can't find the link that I sent of that, so...
Usually the only people that would do it would be the one that we just mentioned and maybe the Doctor Who magazine once in a while.
Yeah,
will
Doctor
hold
Who
a poll
magazine
too.
tends to do one,
Mhm.
but Radio Times does one. Every now and again another source does it.
Right. But, actually, it might have been Doctor Who magazine, but either way, I had Tennant listed 59%, with the vast majority of the Doctors sharing the bottom 5%.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so if you somehow have not heard of this Doctor and are still listening to our show for some reason, David Tennant is the 10th Doctor who took over the show in Parting of the Ways, which was the season finale in 2005. Held the show until New Year's Day in 2010. D is considered to be the most human version of the Doctor and is my personal favorite New Who Doctor.
Yeah, he's mine as well. He was also kind of the manic Doctor in a way. He was always that excited, squeaky. He was largely based on the 5th Doctor in Tennant's portrayal of him.
Mm-hmm.
As shown in Time Crash. He has the brainy specs, the sand shoes, and when he gets excited, his voice goes up in the squeaky voice. So yeah, he's my favorite Doctor too, just because he always very well meshed with how I don't know. It's just something about him.
I have to say he probably is the more solid, even story-wise, Doctor out of the 3 we've had so far. I think the first Doctor had some really good stuff, but he also had some stuff that kind of fell on its face and flailed like a Muppet. And Matt Smith has had even more of that now, but
Yeah, the 10th Doctor combines a lot of aspects of the first, 5th, 7th, maybe a little bit of the 3rd Doctor,
and some of the
a
4th.
bit of the 4th,
And nobody can skip the 4th.
I think that's why I like him, is that he is such a composite.
Yeah, and I think the things that he gets from the 2nd are the things that carried on to things such as the 4th and whatever, so I can't really say he borrowed as much from the 2nd as, say, 7 or 11 would do. He obviously carried some things over from 9 because he's essentially a healed version of the same character after having gone through his trauma and recovered a bit from it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why I'm not as fond of the 9th Doctor, is he's more kind of depressive. And this is the manic portion. This is the part of I'm going out in the universe and I'm excited about it.
Until something comes back up and touches on things I don't want to talk about again. Then the sad, lonely Doctor. I'll be over here.
He can be that at times too, because David Tennant never had a good series finale. Or at least
never had a happy.
Not good as in quality, yeah, good as in for him.
Never had a happy ending.
Didn't have a happy ending, yeah.
Series 2, Lost Rose. Series 3, buried the Master and said goodbye to Martha Jones.
I'm going to mention this because this is still somewhat of a debate with between Moffat fans and RTD fans, and Moffat goes for the fairy tale thing, and here's where I think RTD can do fairy tales a little better than Moffat can. Because if you look at every one of the series closers with David Tennant or Christopher Eccleston, there is that fairy tale. It's magic saves the hero, and then the hero has to pay the cost, and that to me is the quintessential fairy tale.
Moffat
in the first. Go ahead.
Moffat goes for the modern fairy tale.
Yeah.
RTD went for the Grimm's fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
In the
classic,
first season,
original fairy tale, if you will.
In the first season, magic saves the Doctor and Rose, but the Doctor has to regenerate. In the second season, same thing happens, but he loses Rose. In the third season, same thing happens, but he loses Martha. And so forth, until finally the Doctor regenerates into a new show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's almost Eastern in RTD style, because it's kind of like, the karmic pay the piper.
Right.
And a lot of stuff,
no
particularly
intended,
like Japanese productions, does not have the, victory without sacrifice. It's usually the sacrifice for victory is, written into almost everything done by Japanese and Asian productions. Right. And RTD does that a lot better than Stephen Moffat. I mean, even looking at like the 50th anniversary special, where he turns around and pretty much undoes every cost that the Doctors had to pay in a way regarding Gallifrey.
Now, Donna Noble might need a little bit more introduction.
No, I said regarding Gallifrey.
No, I'm saying in terms of going forward. I mean, unless you wanted to add more to that.
Well, yeah, it's like, and then, at the end he had to pay the ultimate cost to save everything and keep Gallifrey locked away. And it cost him, and then he was still alive, and then had to save one old man from a radiation chamber.
Yeah.
And that was kind of really him in a nutshell. He was always, the self-sacrifice was always an under-theme with the 10th Doctor. If you look at, especially his Christmas specials.
In Day of the Doctor, he's referred to as the hero because that's what he's constantly faced with, the hero's choice, and makes a decision along that line.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and so now we're going to move on to who is Donna Noble.
Yep.
That's an interesting one, because we first met Donna Noble, and she was completely different from the Donna Noble we caught in this series. She was
her introduction was essentially a Catherine Tate character. If anyone's seen or read or heard about the Catherine Tate show, which
are some of the most annoying characters on British television.
Yeah. I know British people who really hate her guts because a lot of people in Britain take her characters as prime examples of what to act like.
I'm sure there's an American actor or actress who is very similar in terms of career to Catherine Tate. I just can't think of who.
Jersey Shore.
No,
anybody from Jersey Shore. Anyone from that
show. Catherine Tate isn't playing Catherine Tate in her show. She's playing.
Well, that's the problem, though, is that she's acting as an act.
Was 10 years ago, I would say Roseanne Barr. Only even Roseanne Barr is a little more amusing than Catherine Tate.
Yeah.
But it's because Catherine Tate's characters tend to be selfish, short-sighted, loudmouth, arrogant characters. And that was pretty much Donna Noble when she came onto the scene, being sucked into the TARDIS pretty much from the aisle.
Eminem when he first came out.
What?
Eminem when he first came out.
I don't know. I wasn't really an Eminem fan. But yeah, so she gets sucked from being walked down the aisle into the TARDIS, bewildering the 10th Doctor, and then manages to boss him around enough to get her to
proceeds to verbally abuse him until he does what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least as close as he can, because it's impossible and he has no idea where she came from.
Correct. But apparently the entire thing, which turns out that her husband-to-be was actually an agent of the Rachnos, which was using her as a test bed for all this energy that was going to be used to basically destroy the universe, changed her. And after taking a bit to reflect on it, she went to find the Doctor again. And to take him up on the offer of traveling with him.
She sort of became what Sarah Jane is in the new series, really. Like,
kind of.
Showing up to a place to investigate alien activity.
Yeah, in a way, Donna Noble almost 180s from her old self. She's still a loudmouth, and I actually like that about her.
Mm-hmm.
She's still a little bossy, but she knows enough to respect it when the Doctor, gets his serious voice, his game face going. And she begins to see outside the box. She loses the short-sightedness. And really, I think that's the most abrupt yet believable change we have seen in a Doctor Who character.
Pretty much.
Because, the Doctor seems to have a built-in mental criteria of who he travels with. And in the beginning, Donna Noble had pretty much none of those traits. And I think at the end of it, she began checking almost every box of those traits. She didn't quite have all of them when she started traveling with him, but at the same time, she began to show more and more of them as the fourth series progressed.
And part of the Doctor's thing is people who have the potential to be like he is aiming for, rather than being perfect people right off the bat. I mean, look at Rose and Jack, and neither one of them were prime examples of humanity when the Doctor met them in Series 1.
Yeah, but even both of those, the change was not as absolutely spun around as Donna Noble. Because Jack, there was a little bit of it in there. It had just been buried.
Mm-hmm.
And Donna Noble had none of it, and he managed to grow it in her in a way. And that was kind of amazing.
Also, of those three, Donna's the only one who did not have a crush on the Doctor.
Correct. That was also something refreshed, since all the other companions seemed to either fall in love or have a massive crush on the Doctor. And Donna Noble stated from the beginning that she wasn't in it, because of that. She was, in it to see the universe. She didn't want to miss out on anything anymore. And it's funny, because they'd go around and they'd be, bickering at each other, and people would keep going, "Are you two married? And they were me like, no.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought for some reason or another they would wind up getting married by the end of the series. Although it would have been for some strange reason.
Just because the Doctor's been marrying everybody lately does not mean.
Well, no. This was before the marrying everybody. This was before River's song even showed up. I thought it would have been because
the end of the series was after that. But yeah,
I thought they would have had to have like either that or posed as a married couple or something.
Right.
Just with the amount of the are you two are is this your wife? No, she's not my wife. You know, kind of thing kept going on.
Yeah.
I thought that was leading somewhere.
It would have been nice if it did.
And of course, then besides the "Are You Married," there was the fact that Donna Noble at this point was working as a temp, and that kept coming up recurrent in the series as "I'm just a temp." And then later on, too, there was "There's something on your back" in reference to the time she had the.
And in connection with the temp thing, there was a lot of from what I've read, at least, as Catherine Tate characters are prone to do, Donna had very little consideration of herself as being a worthy person, constantly trying to prove herself with her brash personality and such, whereas, and that was part of it, you know, I'm useless, what do you want with me, I'm just a temp, and that was, you know, over time she realized that she wasn't quite so useless.
And then, in addition to that, like I said, there was "There's Something on Your Back," which became a reoccurring theme, which was a reference to the fact that Donna eventually had a beetle on her, which basically spun the universe in another direction of what if Donna hadn't been there originally and the Doctor would have died, which changed everything that had happened in Series 3 and 4. And then they managed to force it back on the right track. It was an amazing change. And it finally wound up with, in the finale of the 4th series, Donna got caught up in the Doctor's regenerative metacrisis. She basically absorbed all of the Doctor's knowledge, which, had she kept it, would have made her a Mary Sue.
Mm-hmm.
But Russell T Davies wrote it in, and this I actually agree with, that a human couldn't hold the knowledge of a Time Lord. And it started to basically burn her mind.
Particular a 30-something-year-old human versus an arguably 2,000-year-old Time Lord.
That's not even the beginning of the case. You think about this. Time Lords have the ability to sense time. They see, as was put by the Ninth Doctor, everything there is, everything that was, everything that will be, all burning through your head simultaneously. Now think about having every second of your memory with this sense, and imagine 900 plus years of that burned into a brain that has no perception of such senses.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I do think that over time, given time to incorporate it slowly, it could possibly be handled, whereas in an instant, there's no such adaptation.
Your brain will overclock itself trying to process that data.
Which is what we see happening with Donna in Journey's End.
And so the Doctor had to take away all of the memory, all of the progress Donna had made since the Runaway Bride, turning her back into that arrogant, selfish person that we saw at the beginning, and that was probably one of the most tragic moments in modern Who to date. I'd say it's even more tragic than Amy and Rory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see what's tragic about Amy and Rory living out their lives to 80-something together.
Yeah.
Apparently it was tragic for the Doctor because he decided to basically retire from life and become a sulky, depressed man in the 19th century, which, as you know...
I was recently having this debate with someone, and they were like, you know, the 11th Doctor goes through such loss and heartache. I was like, his loss was that his best friends lived their life with each other instead of him. I'm like, I don't think I know anybody who hasn't had such a similar loss in their life, and most people are not completely destroyed by it.
Yeah, that particular bit makes no sense to me, that would drive the Doctor over the edge. I had this argument with Flint.
Mm-hmm.
And I still agree with my point that the Doctor was grossly overreacting to that. Unless you take into account that it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That it was Amy and Rory, that it was Donna, that it was Martha, that it was Rose, that it was anybody else he lost during the Time War, all just kind of settled down on his shoulders. Only then
Which
could
actually, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent with this, but it would be interesting if having the weight of Gallifrey lifted from his mind kind of enabled him to go back and, for example, now that he doesn't have that weight and isn't crushed by it anymore, that maybe now him seeing Amy and Rory would be possible or different than before Day of the Doctor.
I don't know. I don't think so, because it's kind of written into his own history that he doesn't see them again because of, receiving the letters.
Mm-hmm. There's actually notes to the book.
True. I mean, it could always be something like, like...
So he might not do it lest he start a paradox?
True, but even things like that, minor events such as the Five Doctors don't seem to always factor into long-standing things like that. Like, for example, as far as Sarah Jane's concerned, when the Doctor dropped her off in... what was the episode right before...
A Hand of Fear,
the Deadly
I think?
Assassin? Yeah. When the Doctor dropped her off there, even though she did encounter each and every one of his incarnations almost up until seeing him again, as far as she was concerned, that's when when they were done seeing each other. You know what I mean?
Well, she'd never really, other than the Five Doctors, she had never seen them again. And I think she'd like to chalk off the Five Doctors as a really bad dream. It was, really the Five Doctors is Sarah Jane's bad day. In a way. If you look at how much shit is heaped on her before getting scooped up to the whole Doctors thing, I think at the end of it she came off and she's just like, that didn't happen.
And like you, she probably considers that other time that she met the 6th and 7th... Well, she probably... I don't remember which companion met who, but she probably considers the 6th and 7th Doctors to be a bad dream, just like you do.
What? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Dimensions in time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I heard syllables, but I couldn't make them out.
I have no idea what you were talking about. Such a thing does not exist. Sarah Jane only met future Doctors once.
In short, Bill. Shh. Shh.
In short, Bill, don't talk about that piece of crap because it makes absolutely no sense.
I was going to mention the fact that people seem to have references to Sarah Jane meeting 8 as well, but you would have just told me that wasn't canon and move on. So
yeah, because that was either a novel or a Big Finish production, and
although
it might be canonized now, but
might have been a comic.
If it's a comic, that's not guaranteed either.
I would have to read of what happened, because if the 8th just dropped in on Sarah's life, that's just, oh, hello,
Right.
Hi, how you doing? So that's not really that bad.
Although I would love to see Frobisher in the show.
That's the type of thing that I would mean anyway. Like, anything. Even to the scale of battle. Well, something to the scale of Battlefield might be pushing it. That might be beyond the realms of constraint.
Yeah.
Either way, I just realized we've gotten this far on a tangent about Sarah Jane because of Amy and Rory, neither of which have anything to do with what we're actually trying to discuss.
Well, we got there in relation to the fact that Donna Noble, I said, was more tragic than Amy and Rory, and I think we agree with that.
And this whole tangent was agreeing with you. So
Even, I think, more tragic than Rose.
Yeah, I'd say so.
To some extent, yeah.
Rose got her happy ending, even if it wasn't as happy as she wanted. But
yeah, and Donna Noble...
She wanted a really happy ending, so...
And Donna Noble got everything locked away, meaning everything she had become, the person she had become, had to die. And that was what made that the most tragic. It's the most tragic, I think, bit in Doctor Who since the death of Adric. Which I think is the most pointless death, but still it was a moment of tragedy. I mean, that was also the only time in Doctor Who history where they didn't do the end music. They just had silence in memoriam of the character. But yeah, this is more dramatic.
I'd argue whether Katarina or Adric's death was more pointless. In story-wise, anyway.
Adric died failing to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, but neither one of them had a clue how pointless it was.
Regardless, it is definitely the most tragic bit in New Who thus far.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very sad moment. A lot of fans did not like what happened to Donna. There was a very backlash against what RTD had done.
Mm-hmm. At least wipe away all the extra doctorish stuff out of her head, I would think would be the better choice, but...
but it
would still be kind of hand-wavy.
It's still, it was not received as the best of moment. We got to see Donna Noble a few more times in her amnesiac state during End of Time, where she almost remembered, but not quite. And that's the last we've seen of her.
And it didn't burn her brain, and she didn't die.
Shit nearly burned her brain. If she hadn't sent out the mental equivalent of an EMP pulse, it would have.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the doctor was prepared for that.
I've heard that acronym pronounced phonetically.
What?
EMP pronounced as EMP. I don't think
I always refer it as EMP. I don't know why.
I've heard it is referred to as EMP before.
You've also known me for 10 years, Matt, so you could have also heard it from me.
I could swear I've heard it other places.
I hear it in, I play a lot of, Dark Future role-playing and stuff, like Cyberpunk. So I hear it as, an EMP grenade. So that might be where I get it from.
Okay, I can see that. So all of this brings us to Death's Deal, our story featuring Dr. Noble and the 10th Doctor as part of Destiny of the Doctor.
You mean Donna Noble, right?
Is that not what I said?
You said Dr. Noble.
Dr. Noble.
Why am I allowed to have a mouth?
You had a meta crisis in your mouth.
Why am I allowed to have a keyboard? Because I screwed up a tile card yesterday too.
I can't say Knight of the Whisper to save my life. I can't say Donna Noble, apparently.
I think we need to go back in time and talk to Sticky.
I'm pretty sure at least once an episode you have to correct me on something that I've said without realizing that I said it.
Oh, that's my job. So yes, Donna Noble in Death's Deal.
Whose turn is it?
It's not mine, because I did it last time. Remember? I did it in gravelly voice. So you two can draw straws.
Rock, paper, scissors, Bill?
Rochambeau each other.
I don't think that works very well in text. I mean, in voice.
We can always bring out cameras if we need to. Well, actually, how about this? Let me see here. Yeah, I'll flip this. Heads Bill, tails me.
I'll trust you.
It's heads.
Of course. All right. The Doctor
I
and
should have
Donna.
flipped.
That's true. The Doctor and
That's
Donna
true, because
are.
I'm not going either way.
Yeah. The Doctor and Donna are in space, and they pick up a distress beacon from a ship that I can't remember the name of, saying that they are stranded on Death's Deal. There's interference, so the Doctor boosts the signal, at which point they first discover that it's a recording, and then discover that there are over 600 similar distress signals in the same region of space, all from ships that have crashed on Death's Deal and are not likely to survive. So they take the TARDIS down to the planet and discover that another ship has done so as well. They believe that this is a rescue ship until they discover that it is the interstellar equivalent of a tour bus. They discover that Death's Deal is considered to be the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, and that ships that crash there generally do not survive long enough for the rescue team to show up. This is after Donna attempts to force them to help with the rescue, showing that this is a Donna that has grown to the point of, going on to tell someone, "Hey, help us rescue these people." From there, the tour ship and the TARDIS are both destroyed and/or eaten by the local wildlife, and they discover that the surface of the planet is essentially living coral that can eat them. That's an anticlimactic description, whatever.
It's essentially coral with a lot of different life forms within it that could easily nab anyone at any second if they're not aware of it.
That as well. The coral will eat you, as will everything else that is capable of surviving on it. The survivors of the ship are the tour guide, a pirate, and did they ever establish the age of the pirate?
Young. Like, I would assume early to mid-teens.
No,
that's
he's
what I
barely out of his
assumed
teens.
well.
Barely out of his teens.
So assuming he's human, or at least close enough to it, 20s age human, and a girl about the same age, who is not a pirate but is traveling somewhat with him in order to get to Death's Deal. They then discover that the distress signal that led them there is actually submitting Morse code, which forms the word Alon-Z. Obviously, this is a message specifically for the Doctor, so they follow this. They also meet an anthropologist. Was she with the group, or was she on the planet? I never understood that.
Anthropologist?
I think the anthropologist was in the group.
Okay, she was with the tour group. They then board this one derelict in which the 11th Doctor has left a hologram for the 10th Doctor, who immediately recognizes him as such, and explains to them that they need to find essentially evidence that there are slaughter crystals, which the Doctor needs to explain to Donna why something named slaughter crystals would be bad, which are on the planet, and someone intends to exploit them. I'm just terrible at recalling the details of this, like specific details in order.
Yeah, they kind of ran together to me too.
Yeah, like this is an episode that would have been a lot easier to follow if it was visual. At least for me.
Should I do it, the rest of it then?
If you feel like you do a better job, I'm trying here.
So after seeing actually it wasn't a hologram, it was a video feed actually of the 11th Doctor, because there was static, and it was on screen. They proceed to head outside when they are attacked by some more local monsters. I believe they were, I I forget what they described them as. They were essentially the mental image I have them were the likes from Legend of Zelda. They're these spongy things, and they kind of leaned out to a point, and then they would actually crawl out a thing that would kill people, and then eat them.
Yeah.
Drag them in and eat them. They managed to do that to the tour guide.
Paralyze someone and then eat them. Well, paralyze them, spear them, and then eat them.
Yeah, drag them in and eat them. They managed to do it to the tour guide, and they were about to do it to Donna before the pirate boy finally pulled out a pistol, shot the thing, and the doctor pulled Noble away.
It was actually the girl stole his weapon from him and then shot.
That's right. Yeah. After this, they go running for the hills essentially to try and find out who this person is that the doctor's supposed to save, because there's apparently a survivor. As they continue to run, Donna and the tentacled survivor that they mentioned previously fall into a hole. Thanks to the alien, Donna does survive the fall because apparently he has essentially like a clam-like shell on him.
He's described as being a humanoid barnacle.
Yeah. And after crash landing, the doctor does tell Donna that while she's down there, here's a light, tosses it down. Here's a key to the TARDIS, tosses it down. Go see if you can find the TARDIS. I'll keep looking for the person that we need up here. And leaves before the other squiddly things come after the doctor. Down in the underground, I'll follow that for a while. Donna proceeds with the Barnacle Man, and they realize that they are in essentially a constantly circling cave of tunnels that keep going around and around and around. It seems to pretty much encircle almost the entire surface of the planet. Then they figure out that what must be doing this is essentially giant earthworms. They continue to run until they are essentially caught in a dead end. Barnacle Man opens up the clamshell and essentially tells Donna, this is your only chance, this is the only way you're going to get through this. I can easily survive the worm, but you won't. She crawls inside the shell. They are eaten and then defecated by the worm. The Barnacle Man suffered very little, and other than the fact that Donna had to hold her breath, she comes out of it fine as well. They follow the worm as they see a light up ahead, and they come into a room full of these crystals. The what are they called again?
Slaughter crystals.
Slaughter crystals. They come into the room full of slaughter crystals, as well as other essentially towering behemoths with multiple limbs reaching around for any kind of food. Most likely we encountered one or two of them on the surface as well earlier. And as they are looking around the room, it's lit up by the crystal's energy, and they can finally see the TARDIS. They make a run for it. Barnacle Guy does get hit, to which, in order to lure the creature away from actually devouring Barnacle Guy, Donna lights up a flashlight that she was given, and then tosses it towards the crystals. The creature then hits the crystals and then proceeds to get killed, to which the rest of it actually pulled back and probably detached that particular limb. Donna and Barnacle Guy managed to make it to the TARDIS just in time before the limbs come out after them once again. Sealing off the TARDIS, Donna is still kind of nervous about the fact that the barnacle things the tentacle things are trying to attack from outside. She starts flipping switches wildly, which more or less leads us to what happens on the surface. Back on the surface, the Doctor, and the Pirate Boy, and the girl are continuing to run when they encounter what they think is a quiet area and have a sit down, but it turns out that the petrified trees are also living creatures and try to ensnare them. They barely manage to escape and are suddenly pulled back by a wild man who essentially ignores the next creature, which is apparently some sort of bladed snail, which cuts down a lot of the tree limbs and so forth. the wild man grabs some of the tree limbs and heads off with the others back to where he's been more or less safe for this entire time. We find out that this is the man that the doctor thought he's supposed to be looking for, and is also the father of the young girl. The reason why she came to this planet was to actually try and find him, and not because she wanted to cruise around the universe with Pirate Boy. As they go back to the wild man's hollowed out spaceship where he's apparently been living, the doctor tries to find any missing information that might still be held in the hull of the ship, and uses his sonic, to which it drives a whole bunch of creatures crazy all at once. He stops it and then does it again, realizing that not only the sonic could be driving the monsters crazy, but all of the messages going out into space throughout the planet might also be driving the creatures on the planet to go completely and totally hostile. However, the wild man does not take kindly to the doctor figuring this out, and decides that he wants to knife the doctor. The pirate boy tries to intervene, but gets stabbed in the wrist for it, and dies another gruesome death, much like the previous creature I mentioned. Essentially, when he gets cut, the wound quickly goes black, then his veins go black, and essentially it looks like they're burning up from the inside. Boils and everything before collapsing dead. I believe the pirate boy even cries out for his mother just before dying.
And by the way, since this was bothering me that I didn't get them quite right either, I believe the pirate boy's name is Tad. The girl with him's name is Lyric.
Lyric, okay.
And I'm thinking that Crux is the anthropologist that that was with Donna at the time.
Okay. So the doctor and Lyric are held off by the.
I think you're right about the girl's name. I'm not sure you're right about the pirate.
Unfortunately, the TARDIS data core has red links.
I thought it started
nowhere.
with a G.
His last name is Grugan. That might have been
that might be how I know him then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the doctor and the Lyric are held off by the wild man, and he's essentially going to sacrifice them to a giant creature. They nearly do fall off the ledge, while the girl continues to try and talk her father down into remembering who she is and to open up the locket. The doctor manages to get his screwdriver back, as it's also signaling that the TARDIS has gotten in contact with him, and he can try and call the TARDIS over with manual control from the screwdriver. He activates the screwdriver, which also drives all the creatures crazy. The two pets that the wild man had fight each other, and to the point that they also fall off the edge. He just kind of starts blubbering and falls off too, handing off the necklace before he officially falls off to Lyric, and says, in short, "I don't want to remember, just take it," and falls to his death inside the creature as well. The TARDIS shows up, with Donna having hit almost every single switch she knows of, before the TARDIS finally goes into auto. They appear right above the doctor, and they all together manage to pull the doctor and Lyric back into the TARDIS. Once inside the TARDIS, they open up the locket to find out that there's also the memory chip that they needed in order to send off information to the officials. While all of this has also been going on, they figured out that there are people coming down to get these crystals, and that getting these crystals is supposed to be illegal, and that they could be easily used for weapons that could destroy entire planets. As they are inside the TARDIS, they see the ships that are coming down to prepare to mine those crystals. Then the Doctor uses the sonic screwdriver combined with the TARDIS to send a signal to those ships to self-destruct, ergo ending the intention of trying to mine the planet, while also sending off the signal of what they found on that computer chip to the necessary law enforcement in the local area, I suppose.
Yes.
They do come back to the planet one more time. They leave Marco Man behind because he very much wants to study the planet, as he believes it to be very much like his own home planet, but in a much earlier state. And the girl wants to stay behind to explain what all happened, because somebody should. To that, the Doctor and Donna leave them behind, and they figure that it wasn't the the wild man that they were supposed to save, but actually his daughter that they were meant to save, and job well done. And they then leave to continue their adventures. Apparently going on to the library episode next after this, supposedly. Silence in the library.
As far as the complete adventures was able to discern, there is, I think, a comic in between. But a lot of that is speculative anyway. So they essentially go on to the next story, and then eventually on to the library and such.
Yep.
All right.
So the 11th Doctor has a history of leaving very vague instructions specifically to confuse his former selves and create plots for stories. As of this point, I think.
Yeah, he seems to be a bit of a douche about actually giving them the full information.
Yeah, that's kind of really dumb if you think about it.
Last time we had William tell us the key, and there are enemy aliens, and this time we have Erskine, but he's not going to say whether it's Lyric or Professor, just Erskine.
Mm-hmm.
It's no wonder why the 8th Doctor hates being contacted by his future selves.
Because some of them are idiots.
He seems to make it like it's a common thing. Either that, or it's just him. It's either that, or it's his built-up annoyance after having dealt with it the previous 7 times.
This is true. I mean, by this point, he's dealt with future versions of himself. Not only the 7 times in Destiny of the Doctor, but he's lived through the 3 Doctors 3 times, the 5 Doctors 5 times, the 2 Doctors twice, the 8 Doctors if you count it. He doesn't like encountering himself. Oh, and possibly light at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Sirens of Time, too.
Yep.
Either way, I think he's getting fed up with it, because this doesn't happen to other Time Lords, it just happens to him.
Yeah,
why the hell
much.
does this keep happening to me?
The Time Lords started it, and it just became a domino effect.
Pretty much. When you break the rule once, it's permanently broken.
Actually,
anyway.
It was the Time Lords' fault, both in the 3 Doctors and the 5 Doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so reviews or discussion. Donna, Catherine Tate did not do the greatest job differentiating the characters' voices.
No, I'm afraid not.
No, that has to be about the only really weak point I can think of.
The thing is, I'm glad that this is late season Donna, because honestly, Grugan sounded more like Donna to me than Donna did, and that really threw me off a couple of times. Like he sounded like early season Donna, whereas she sounded like late season Donna, which isn't extremely different, obviously, but there are differences in attitude and such, and that's really the only thing I could fall on. I'm glad that they got split up, because that made it a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will admit that Catherine Tate does not have the biggest range. I mean, look at how many of the exact same characters she's already made in her career.
Also, her accent
she has a range that falls on within a very limited.
Mm-hmm.
She's good. She's good, but within a limited range of voices.
Yeah, and her accent is rather thick, and I don't think she can do much about that.
It's an accent, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was what hampered her. Like the closest thing that she pulled off was the 10th Doctor, and her accent was clearly hampering her.
Yeah, a little bit.
She was able to do some of the lines, and I could understand them as being the 10th Doctor lines, as in I could hear him saying it.
Yeah, right.
But then she would go into another one, she'd go into an old classic like Alon G, and her accent would be totally throwing off the meter of how it would have been said.
Yeah.
And literally the accent just turned all the other characters into clones of her, so it was very hard to, differentiate in the audio format.
Yeah.
Again, if this had been a regular Big Finish production,
this would have been so much better.
Yes.
I think that might be why there were so many filters involved in the voices.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had both, what's her name? You had, Quilleen and Crooks both had, obviously filtered voices. And if they didn't, I don't know if we would have been. I mean, Crooks was played by somebody other than Tate, but if they both just used their own voices, it would have been pretty much impossible to tell who was who.
Yeah.
But with that said, though, again, much like last time, I still think this is a pretty darn good story.
Yeah, the story itself is good. It reminds me a bit of Midnight.
Yeah, and it's faithful to the season that it represents, except for it ignores pretty much all of the season-wide plots.
Yeah, all the season-wide meme plots, the recurring.
The recurring.
Everything that recurs in that season is pretty much left out of it.
Donna never mentions she's just a temp. Nobody mistakes the Doctor and Donna for being married.
And no one mentions the thing on her back.
And nobody
calls her the most. Nobody calls her the most important person in the galaxy or useless. Her mother's never brought up, thankfully.
Yes, she is.
Is she? Well,
yeah,
not.
Although I don't know, that might not have been Donna. There's a part where somebody's freaking out and talking about wanting to see her mom.
That was the Pirate Boy.
Tad Griffin did that.
That was Pirate Boy when he was dying.
Yeah,
when he
was dying, he wanted his mom.
I could.
Yeah,
he was dying.
I couldn't tell by the voice acting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Every time he spoke, it sounded like Christmas Bride Donna to me.
Yeah. It was that bad.
I mean, Runaway Bride.
Yeah. Runaway Bride. Yeah, I know what you meant.
I don't know. I understood that one perfectly myself, but okay.
Well, the fact that all the voices sound the same kept getting me confusing and would leave me to space out during this.
That seems to be the major problem, though, of these last two in particular, is that these are really good stories, but they need far more people for these.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, New Who, I think, is a lot more visual than Classic Who. I mean, Classic Who had a lot of visuals as well, but the pacing was different. New Who involves a lot more, their budget was able to sustain more of the physical visual effects. So to really capture, what Night of the Whisper and Death Steel are going for, they're trying to represent a very visual era of the show in a completely visual-less format, and that comes off. You can
yeah, I'd still like to see how this was done with a full voice cast instead of just Catherine Tate and this other person.
I still even with a full voice cast, I think I would have gotten lost with this one without being able to see at least some of what was going on.
No, I got it all the way through, and that was just the first attempt. And early in the morning, I might add, too.
But I think it would be a lot better with a full voice cast at the very least.
Yeah, it would help a little bit.
They probably could have done a few more people on that tour shuttle if there was a full voice cast as well, just a few extras.
Not to mention, of course, you'd have Tennant actually doing Tennant, which I would love.
Yeah.
I would love to see him do his own spin on all these lines.
Oh, speaking of which, I think Tate did a good... What do you guys think of Tate's Matt Smith?
I think she did a fairly decent job on that.
So. Again, the accent was a huge hindrance, but some of her delivery was also a little off.
I was fine with it.
I thought it sounded fairly well.
Mm-hmm. I could tell the Matt Smith one apart a lot more than I could tell some of her other voices apart.
I don't know. It was just something. I mean, it started okay, but it kind of trailed off again in the middle to the end.
Of course, I think I think there was more volume emphasis on the lines she did right. Like, anytime I try to think back to that scene, all I can really hear in my mind is the line about how I forget what's exact, but the Ginger would have been cool, Donna Noble, and that's really all that I can pull up in my mind.
Yeah, that line was okay, but the next line should have been jovial, and she kind of delivered it serious, and then she proceeded to go on and say, and then he proceeds in a serious voice. And I'm like, oh.
Well, that might have not been all her either. That could have been the actual script that kind of flopped.
It was it, but it's either that she didn't read the script ahead of time, or she just failed to deliver it right.
I think, the director, John Ainsworth, could probably have stepped in at that point and be like, we need that line again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Really could have, and that could have been a little bit better, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought his name was familiar, but he did the previous episode as well, and for some reason he's not listed as director of this. In one article he's listed as director of this on TARDIS Data Core, and another he's not. So he directed Night of the Whisper and Death's Deal.
And that seems to be part of it's a directorial problem then. Because it has a lot of the same problems with lines not being delivered the way they should be.
Lines not delivered the way they should be, and the voice acting doesn't have the range it really needed.
Well, that last part's a producer problem.
I think that's also partially...
They're also limited to acting with the Doctor Who companion voice actors.
Yeah. And Nick Briggs.
I still would argue that if
starts doing it because I'm the freaking exec producer for this series, so screw you guys.
I would still argue that BBC should have known better to allow them to do the full deal.
Speaking of which, I don't think I've ever said this out loud, even though I've thought it. What do you guys think if Night of the Whisper had been set between Dalek and The Long Game, and they had gotten the companion that's probably much more affordable than the other two to voice it?
Yeah, you mean Adam?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wouldn't really see him as a reporter type.
I really don't like the fact that there's anything in there, because it kind of cheapens the fact that, the TARDIS materializes, he sees the space station and promptly passes out.
Yeah, it's very much a direct sequel, those two particular episodes. There's not really a leeway time there.
But still, he wouldn't have seen anything to the level of, was it Station 51?
It still comes up to me.
Satellite 5.
Yeah.
Satellite 5. How did I get that wrong?
Game Station was its later name.
Yeah, that might have been it.
But no, think about the big bad wolf alien and the assorted aliens in New Vegas.
Okay, yeah, this is true. If he met them, then he would have been a little more.
It would have been still way too fantastic. No, it wouldn't have worked there.
Yeah, that's bad. I just think Nick Briggs trying to do Jack Harkness was a bad idea.
Yeah, especially
I swear they should have had the temp actor in there do Jack Harkness and let Nick Briggs do coordinate.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they had two males that time, right? Which implied that it was probably written for Billy, but they couldn't get her. So yeah, the second guy should have done Jack in that case.
Yep, he would have pulled it off better. But anyway, we're here to talk about this one, Death's Deal.
Speaking of Jack Harkness, he gets dark in seasons 5 and 6 when he's fighting with Green Arrow, man. I had to say that because I've been watching Arrow lately.
I have to beat the crap out of you now, Bill.
Bill, be shushed.
I am going to have to hack a government satellite now to take out Connecticut. Just warning you.
I changed the password from Buffalo.
Changing it to Bison doesn't help.
Well, Randy, you could always enter the world code.
Yeah, 666. No area code. And for those of you that are going, what the heck are they talking about? It's a reference to Escape from L.A.
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter movie. With Kurt Russell as Snake Plissken, and one of my personal favorite movies, and Matt knows that.
Oh, it's also one of my favorite sci-fi movies, too. It's definitely a noteworthy series.
It's on my top 10 list for cyberpunk movies.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I always think Snake Plissken is from Metal Gear Solid, and that always throws me off when people say the name.
In a way, he is, because the fact that the character of Solid Snake was based in part on Snake Plissken.
Okay.
However, Snake Plissken came first.
Snake Plissken did come first by about 5 to 10 years, I think.
Closer to 15 to 20, because the original Escape from New York was in the early 80s.
Yeah, but I think the first Metal Gear game actually came out many years before Solid.
The first Metal Gear game had Solid Snake, but it was a very generic one. It was only in the Solid era that they actually filled in the character, and that's when they used Snake Plissken as a guide.
Probably because he had the name Snake to begin with.
It's possible.
Name Snake. Call me Snake.
But just a little history on the character there for you, Bill. But no. Complete side tangent and derail. Yeah, the writing for this particular
we don't have Eli. We needed a few good tangents.
Smack you, Bill.
The writing for this...
He wanted me... Okay, never mind. I'm not interrupting.
Yeah, I was going to... The writing for this I liked. It was a rather crisp bit. It just suffered from media.
Yeah, they really need more voice work.
I would love to see a novelization of this, actually.
Yeah, even a novelization or even a comic book version would be better.
Yeah, that might work well. It would be a little easier for me to slow down and pay attention to some of the bits that I'm not as good with on audio.
Mm-hmm.
Especially toward the climax. Both times that I've listened to this, I found myself spacing toward the climax just with the amount of things going on with it being an audio book.
Yeah, I listened to it twice in a row, and I had the same problem. I kept spacing out at the same spots.
See, I was actually there and just going, what's next, what's next, what's next? So I had a complete opposite problem with you guys at the very end then.
Well, for me, it was mostly the fact that the voices kept blending together.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm listening to something, I'm usually doing something else, too, so...
Yeah, I'm just
writing or reading a webcomic or something.
The only way I can focus on something audio is if I'm doing something else, even if that something else is just taking the bus and walking.
Sometimes I'll do something on the side, but last couple in particular, I've actually done without actually any side interruptions.
Yeah, anytime I've ever tried to listen to an audio production or a podcast or anything without doing something, I can't focus my attention because I normally need to multitask to focus my attention on something anyway.
I was planning on listening to this before I went to bed last night, just lying in bed. But I ran into the side problem of the fact that I didn't get home last night until damn near 2 and I was dead exhausted. So I just kind of crawled into bed, didn't bother hooking up the computer, and just passed out. So that didn't help.
Mm-hmm. So, good story. The voice acting is a bit meh, and might be also partially due to direction.
And the other guy was fine, except we never heard him other than through a voice synthesizer.
Mm-hmm. Played Barnacle Guy, and what else did he play?
The Professor.
Ah, right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. He played the Professor without the synthesizer. But yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think he played all of it on the synthesizer, but yeah, he played Barnacle Guy.
And he did an okay job, but he was playing all original characters, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he didn't have to peg someone else's accent.
Yeah. Seems like we've got a rather short episode on our hands.
Yeah, because I can't think of anything else to really say about this episode.
Right.
It was alright.
It's
not
good,
horrible.
but not great.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Tate didn't do as good of a job as I hoped, but it was mostly because of her accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really wish they had added the seasonal bits in there to make it feel like it was part of that series a little more.
I've got to say the fact that slaughter crystals need to be explained why they're a bad thing. Like, I don't know. I hear the name slaughter crystals and I'm like, okay, that's a bad thing. We need to do something about it.
Oh, it still needs exposition, whether it's called the crystals of death or the crystals of vast sexagol,
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter.
Like wasn't Donna's reaction something like, "Is that bad?" or something? And I was just like, "Yeah, I think probably."
Well, slaughter crystals also could have been crystals invented by Sergeant Slaughter.
And that's a whole other tangent right there.
I'm just saying, it could have been the name of somebody.
Yeah, but he still doesn't sound like
slaughter
nice
crystals. It could have been, like the Smith isotope. You can't help it if your last name is Slaughter.
Yes, you can. You can change it.
You usually don't name things after you if that's the case.
You'd be surprised.
Like if a scientist unlucky enough to have the last name of Hitler discovered a new element, would it be Hitlerium? Probably not.
Hitlerium. That's hilarious.
So
Only,
yeah,
and it's especially dangerous when merged with Geringite.
Sure. Well, yeah, I don't think we have a lot of disagreement on this episode either, which always makes for shorter discussions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea what Eli would have said on it. We'll catch that next week.
He does want me to say something about lady parts, but I don't know what to say.
Other than lady parts. Well, that's Eli for you, though.
Damn it, Eli!
We can't seem to go a single time with Eli without him oogling over some woman's lady parts.
To be fair, Stephen Moffat made it very easy for him in Day of the Doctor.
Okay.
Crickets.
Well, they had the giant cleavage and then an over-the-shoulder shot. That had to be intentional.
For who?
For the scene with the 10th Doctor and Queen Elizabeth.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, well, Eli's already talked about that.
No, that's what I was just saying. I was just saying, it's not like Doctor Who's making it difficult for him. Does anybody else have anything to say about Death's Deal? I kind of wish they had done something with the name, in terms of who named it, if there was a neon sign and it was an attraction by.
I think if they put up a neon sign, it would have gotten destroyed a long time ago, dude.
I'm surprised there weren't warning buoys.
Oh, you know what I was thinking? Either of you watched X-Men animated series, the '90s one?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
When they named Earth Danger World to get more ratings, I imagine Death's Deal was from something like that, but I feel like it should have had some sort of explanation to how.
My brain goes a completely different tangent on this, Bill. It wonders how this would have done if it was an episode of Star Trek instead of Doctor Who.
Huh.
Red shirts would have died left, right, and center.
Like an episode of either the original series or Next Generation.
Well, if it was Next Generation, then what's his name would have found a cure to slaughter crystals and saved everybody. What's his name? The kid.
Well, Wesley, and that would
Wesley.
that you're assuming that it's while Wesley's still on the ship and not the later seasons.
I haven't gotten to the point where he's not on the ship yet, so every episode he seems to be saving the day in some way.
That's one of the reasons he was written out. But no, I'm imagining if it was an original series plot, the Enterprise catches all these distress signals and comes into orbit.
Yeah.
They beam down a team, and for some reason the coral creates a resonance within the transporter that doesn't allow them to be beamed back up.
And they quickly start devouring red shirts from all the bug aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Just one after another, a new gruesome death.
They probably would have saved the professor against his will, and then maybe he would have...
Come to his senses later.
Maybe. Or he would have sacrificed himself.
Yeah, the only one that would have died would have been red shirts, because all the rest of them would have been saved and would have been taken to Starbase 3 for debriefing. And then they would have put a warning buoy around the planet that this planet is dangerous and not to be.
The professor and Kirk would have had a shirtless fist fight.
Yeah, well, a fist fight that would have resulted in Kirk's tunic being ripped.
Yeah, exactly. And there would have been a romance between Kirk and Lyric.
Probably.
Sadly, yes.
And the fight between Kirk and the professor would have ended with Spock coming up behind him and nerve pinching him.
Yeah. If not, there would have been a slight chance of just Lyric having a crush on Spock that never resulted in anything because Spock. But more likely, she would have had a romance with the captain.
Although, maybe not in this particular case, because there was no real place for them to have a romance on. Might have been some flirting.
So would then Spock have been the one that fell down the hole?
I think they would have made out in a derelict. They would have come across a derelict spaceship, gone in to look for information, and had a scene.
Either that, or she would have turned out to be one of Kirk's ex-lovers.
That
happened more often on Star Trek than you realize.
It did. I don't disagree. Kirk had a lot of ex-lovers.
So, I guess ratings then?
Yeah, I guess so.
Since I brought it up, I might as well go first. Really good story, that brings it up to about 3. Lackluster on the voice work, that takes it down a notch. I guess I would wager 3.5.
I'm right with Matt on this one, 3.5.
I'm thinking that too. I think that's the score I gave last time as well, and seems to be right around the same area.
So in general, 3.5.
3.5.
Slightly above average.
You don't have to do any math on that one, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding.
Carries a 3.
It's good, but not great, and it could be better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it could very easily be better if they threw more people at it. Again, I don't know.
Again, it would be higher if it wasn't this Big Finish Audio Go co-production and was probably a proper Big Finish production.
Well, whoever decided that it was going to be this format needs to be shot in the head.
I think it was the BBC.
In which case, BBC, that was a really bad idea.
I think it was the producer for the series because they didn't want to have...
I think this concept was the BBC's idea.
Right.
Audio Go used to be BBC Audio.
Right. Well, what it was is... Yeah, but in terms of having it... Or actually, I'm sorry, wait, you're talking about the decision of it being an audio book instead of an audio drama? Or?
Yeah. Yes, because I think Audio Go came up with it, and then hired Big Finish to do the recording.
Right, Big Finish was hired to do the legwork. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but the idea to make it an audiobook series, I think, was Audio Go. which is BBC.
Which is why they were allowed to use the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Correct, because normally Big Finish is not allowed to do that. So if it had been their idea, BBC would have looked at him and went, no.
Although I've got to say, because they do it so rarely that I wish they had... Well, actually, no, because Eccleston probably wouldn't have done it. Tennant would probably have been too busy. Smith.
Depends.
Tennant would have probably done it because he loves to be the Doctor.
If he wasn't too busy, he would have done it.
And Chris, it depends, because I think that this was a much better story than what they were giving him for the anniversary, and he might have done it.
I don't think so. I think he has basically
just judging on the fact that I haven't seen him do anything Doctor Who related since 2005.
He doesn't even do conventions. He doesn't even do conventions.
Mm-hmm.
He has basically, since his 2005 role, he has done his damnedest to pretty much cut off all relations with the Doctor Who fan base. So I don't think he'd come back to do an audio.
He will live to regret that someday. You know that.
Yes, he will.
Well, yeah, like he could be the next Tom Baker in that, like, in his 50s and 60s, he's like, you know, I have this group of fans that want me to come back and do this thing that's really popular.
Yeah, it's funny that he, you know...
Because everyone who is ever dead set against ever doing anything more Doctor Who related has been proven wrong in their original thinking of never doing it again.
It's so weird that, you know, with this mentality, why he did Doctor Who in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it will eat at him until he finally does it.
Yeah, like I know in interviews he was excited to do a show that was written by Russell T Davies.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you'd have to ask him, and he probably wouldn't answer.
Yeah, he's talking about it in a much more positive light recently.
Which is at least some sort of change, but still, he seems to be trying to hold back for some reason.
I think partially he doesn't want to deal with, you know, the way that most, you know, anyone who's big on something like Doctor Who has a different experience at things like conventions and things like walking down the street than other people do. And I think he partially wants to avoid that. Or minimize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just surprised he did the role.
Because he should know better if he ever even attempted the role.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. I think that's about it for this episode.
People that go into the Star Trek universe these days pretty much know what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's another tangent. So I guess we're done then for the podcast.
Yeah, we don't really have much to talk about this time because it's been really silent on the BBC front.
Yeah, that's another part of why we're having a short episode too.
Yeah, we didn't have much news, we didn't have much disagreement, and we didn't have much to explain because if you're listening to this and not sure who the 10th Doctor is, I'm really surprised.
Yeah, you make me sad, people. You make me sad.
Okay, so then I guess next week we're doing the final one of Destiny of the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, next week is the Time Machine, and we'll find out why Matt Smith is sending all of his previous selves on these errands.
The conclusion.
The conclusion to Destiny of the Doctor.
Time, more or less the same, next week, more or less the same time.
And always the same channel. See you later.